Hey, and we are the Coalition, loud and proud. Right now, we're at your Woonsocket City Council chamber. We're here with freshly minted, newly elected City Council President John Ward. No stranger to the airwaves of the Coalition, and no stranger to city government. He's got a vast resume that includes essentially running the finances at a number of major Rhode Island cities, and seemingly a lifetime spent here in what's it called, Harris Hall, I believe.
It is.
The City of Woonsocket Council Chambers. And as we mentioned before, sort of an encyclopedic knowledge about, well, the city charter. And I think everyone in every town in Rhode Island recently has felt the pain of either a poorly written city charter, or perhaps enjoyed the success of one that's thoughtful and well considered and that's evolved over time to address new challenges. A bunch of subjects. We're going to try and do this in a lightning round. First of all, again, congratulations. You spoke assertively to the type of disclosures that are going to take place in the near future with regard to the hijinks and tomfoolery that seems to have taken place here in Woonsocket by a past administration. I thought it was important that you pointed out the scope and the limitations of a city council and what they can really do. Your analogy about the people with the torches going to City Hall, notwithstanding, it's clear that you can open the windows to what happened, but that's where it really stops. Talk to me about that for a moment.
Well, it doesn't really stop there. Part of this is gathering all together the information, and we could have had available to us the removal proceedings. And I know that people in the public were working on petitions to remove the mayor from office, but she resigned. It became unnecessary. That's the extent of our authority, would be the removal within the scope of the charter. We can't, there are no criminal aspects to what she did related to our city charter or code of ordinances. They're just civil violations. And so we are very limited in that regard. But we do have an obligation, and I intend to fulfill that obligation to the best of our ability to get this information out there available on the website so people can review the documents for themselves. There's a lot of them, and there's more to come. And I expect to do more interviews because we have a CDBG consultant who was working for the city at the time that this program was going on. We have not spoken with him as yet, and there may be others that we've yet to interview. So we will be looking to collect much more information, make it available to the public, and I'll become rather insistent as more time goes by so that the people who are looking for answers can maybe get them. Again, the one thing I think we'll never get is the motivation behind it from the mayor or from the finance director, because they're not here to ask any longer, and it's not within our scope to insist on their appearance before the council. However, there are other authorities, because it was federal money. I can't speak for the federal authorities or for the state authorities as to whether or not there was something that they need to investigate and look into, and may do that in the future, and that may or may not come with us providing all the documentation we have available to them.
If you can speak for a moment to the other issue. It's clear that there are mechanisms in place, both at the city level and, as you mentioned, at the state and federal level, to address the big picture concerns. But with her resignation, what's become clear is that there are the day-to-day indignities that took place as a result of her mayoralties. The intimidations, the bullying, the use of certain city employees, allegedly, again, bullying is probably a great word for it, because a lot of folks were subject to harassment from a variety of city agencies, and they speak to that, and it's a picture that's become too provocative to ignore. Tales of a certain city policeman, being dispatched at different events taking place across the city to intimidate and be a presence and cite obscure laws to provoke. Appointments, firings, demotions. It becomes really the fabric of Woonsocket life. How do we air that, and how does Woonsocket as a city move past that?
Well, I think what you mentioned is some of the things that you witnessed yourself in terms of having people bullied or intimidated in one way or another about where they are, when they're there, and obscure ordinances that they were violating. And it was a hallmark of this last administration to when you look at all of the vacancies in various positions, the terminations, the amazing number of people who left our employment, in some cases, several cases, to take jobs that were paying them less money because their peace of mind called for them to actually be somewhere else.
Right.
So there was pressure inside the city hall that was unnecessary, and I think there are ways to address it through good policies and good procedures that we can require documentation of, and then give an authority to human resource that maybe doesn't actually belong under the control of the finance department. You know, it could be that there should be some separation as an independent body answerable to a mayor, but in the sense that they're answerable to the law as well. You know, there are harassment issues that may have come up over the years. There's not paying overtime, not paying payroll, depriving people of time off that they're entitled to. A whole variety of issues have come to my attention that I need to discuss with the mayor, the council, and maybe look at how we structure the charter to address those things so that they become preventable, or at least for the most part preventable, because people have to remember this city's charter has been in place for over 70 years now. Nothing coming even close to this administration for the last 10 years has ever occurred. No egregious violations. There may have been legitimate mistakes and missteps and things not done quite properly. But nothing at all like has occurred in this last 10 years, and it should never happen again. And I'm going to work on, hopefully, with a charter commission or the council and the mayor to resolve some of those issues through amendments in the charter that make it explicitly clear what our goals and our purpose is and how we can go about protecting employees without coddling them and offering them real employment that they can rely on over a long period of time, as long as they do their job well and are willing to work with the administration in place to get the job done properly.
What I'd love to do every few weeks, when you have a few moments after a city council meeting, is sort of do like a lightning round. Just go through some of the issues and your thoughts on them. Obviously, abatements were a big part of tonight's meeting. A lot of folks don't understand the mechanisms of something like a proposed pilot program, who's actually being taxed, who's not. You know, for the most part, most people's lives, they own a home, and if they own a home, they get a tax bill. And it's really that, they can debate it, but it's really straightforward. There's no process in place. What happened tonight?
For most people, that's the case. What happens oftentimes in commercial properties, most often, there's a dispute over how much the property is assessed as a value, and the companies that own these corporate operations and buildings will appeal their valuation so that their tax bill would be lower. And what has occurred over the course of the last 8 years or so is that the values seem to have come in extraordinarily high in one full revaluation year, and there were many, many appeals. There are many, many yet to discuss, where a person can appeal their value, and they go before the assessor, who oftentimes will deny the appeal, and then they go to a tax assessment board of review, who can modify or deny, and if they're denied, then the petitioner can go to the state Supreme Court. And so what's occurred over the many years is that some of these have been settled, but for some reason the administration prevented the abatements, or the correction is really what it is, from coming to the council for approval, because it would affect either the receivables or it would affect our income by causing us to do a reimbursement or an adjustment to future years to make up for the overcharge.
Right.
And so it has been withheld, and we think intentionally withheld these last several years. And this assessor, as you may have noted this evening at the meeting, was providing us with a large list of abatements, and he has been for some time trying to bring us what he could. And I think it's going to allow him and the solicitor to clear up a lot of cases and settle issues and get this behind us in fairly short order, like within a few months.
Is there the potential that this number could have materially clouded the vision of the city council and the true economic picture of the city?
Yes, there is. There are some cases that are fairly large that we have to yet deal with that could affect what our what our budgetary surpluses were in the past that were claimed that may in fact have been overstated, and or at least the projection of revenues that may never have come in. However, in some cases, you're required to pay the bill before you can appeal, and in paying the bill, it becomes revenue of the city, and if we end up having to rebate, it can affect our bottom line, our surplus status, and if we don't rebate and we settle for future adjustments, then it reduces our tax levy in the future so that other people have to pay more to make up for what we lose in those settlements. Other people being homeowners.
Right. Now, tonight there was a discussion of one of the labor contracts, and there was discussion about financial impact statements. I get the sense that, and please clarify, that these financial impact statements may have been sort of skipped over, ignored sometime. What happened during this contract process where this is still an issue?
No, I think in this case it was a one-off. We generally get financial impact statements. Sometimes the prior councilman Canoyer would challenge their credibility, but the fact is we would get them. This time, the finance director who has been terminated generally was the person who was preparing them and all of the formatting for them, and the formulation structure was in her files and would have to be retrieved through the technology people. This finance director was never usually directly involved in the preparation of those. So with her gone, the former finance director who was the controller now gone, she has to do something she's never done specifically, I guess, in this case. And it can be complex because you're talking about retroactivity, you're talking about flat amounts, percentage increases, some overtime reimbursements, some healthcare changes, a variety of things that have dollar values that have to be quantified. And it'll take a little time, but I'm sure by our next regular meeting we'll have that information available and we should be able to move on without too much of a problem.
The supermarket abatement sort of, I don't want to call it pro forma, but development. The former mayor, had been touting the language is cloudy, the near imminent arrival of a supermarket.
Yeah.
Is that real? Are those conversations legit?
The former mayor would oftentimes do preliminary announcements about potential things. Some of them would actually happen, some of them not. And I've spoken with the mayor, Beauchamp, and the planning director about the legitimacy of that actual possibility. And it is a real possibility, but it's not something that's really there for public consumption as yet because there's a lot of players involved and a lot of mechanisms in place that you don't want to do anything that would compromise it. However, this particular ordinance, I think was withheld because I think the Mayor Beauchamp wants to work on what it means to the process. And it may have been that it was simply a bit premature.
Could the timing and the release of that have had anything to do, in your opinion, or generically, with the timing of the scandals? It struck a lot of folks, and again, I love these conversations because we can address some of the things that folks are talking about on the streets of Woonsocket.
I think the ordinance that was proposed by Councilman Manseri did not have anything to do with it. However, I think many of the press releases that seemed to come flowing out of City Hall while the former mayor was overseas on vacation was indicative of the fact that there was an attempt to create a noise, so to speak, about positive things that were going on. Whether they were speculative or real didn't much matter. It was about noise, and it didn't overshadow what the problems were that she was confronting.
A big focus tonight was discussion surrounding the need to do a really hard ground floor analysis of where the city stands with APRA funding and what can be done moving forward. Did the mayor, or I should say within the former administration, was there a clear snapshot or clear reporting on where the municipality stood with regard to the APRA money given and what's available?
We do get reports, Those reports you can find attached to our agendas month over month, and they're there. But my concern is that we're running out of time to commit the money within the guidelines prescribed for doing the program. And with, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 million dollars left unplanned, we need to put them down on paper as something that we're going to commit to particular projects.
Right.
And I don't want to miss deadlines for doing that. So I've asked the administration to get together with the council, put together that schedule of what we've appropriated already, look at what's leftovers from those things that cost less, look at how much money was put back because we did it otherwise, and then talk about what we're going to do with the rest and actually commit it to projects, because we have a fairly extensive list of projects
Right.
that qualify, and there may be other projects that qualify that could provide assistance in other areas of the government and of the city and of the people of the city. So I think we have an obligation to put that together, come to consensus on how we're going to plan out spending the rest of the money and commit to it, and then get to work doing the job.
One or two quick things in the couple of minutes we have left. Again, I appreciate you saying it's been a full and rewarding day, I'm sure, for folks in this sort of reconstituted Woonsocket City administration. Body cameras, those came up tonight. Where do body cameras stand for law enforcement in the city of Woonsocket?
The body cameras program was ordered, and the body cameras exist. However, because the nature of public safety officials tends to rely on contractual considerations, I guess that has yet to be worked out between the union and the administration. The solicitor is working on that as we speak, and we hope to have some resolution under some kind of an agreement that would have the body cameras on the police officers and put to good use.
And the final question for the night, and again, thank you, the opioid settlement money.
Yes.
Where does that stand here in the city of Woonsocket? Has any of it been spent, committed?
You know, I mentioned the list of things we have in front of us, and I missed that one, quite frankly. It is a portion of money that's coming to us that has very rigid guidelines governing it, and through both the federal government over the lawsuit controls that were put in place in the state, and we have to abide by those guidelines and report appropriately. But it is something that we will have to have a discussion about, to review with whoever we have available to either provide it in-house, or possibly we may want to have someone come in as a consultant who is specializing in it and assist us in making sure we have a plan that's workable going forward.
City Council President John Ward, again, congratulations. And my viewers at the Coalition Radio Network are grateful for these kind of conversations. Answers a lot of questions and dismisses a lot of speculation. And when there's speculation because there's no transparency, you get very often, I guess the word of the week this week in Woonsocket is drama. You end up with far more drama than very often is necessary.
I'm looking forward to the day where our governance is becoming very boring, because we just work together to solve problems and deal with issues and properly deal with the funds we have available for these emergencies and take care of them, finish projects, move on to new projects, and take care of the things we have to for the city.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.